Namaskar. Good morning, everyone. My name is Bhuvan, and this is the editorial edge for the 26th of September 2023. On the agenda today, we have three important topics like we always do, and we'll seek to understand, the historical perspective leading up to the contemporary. Okay. So the first topic that I have for you today, number one, we are going to discuss about Five Eyes Alliance. Now, this has been in the news, but I will not just look at Five Eyes Alliance. I'll also look at Five Eyes versus Nine Eyes versus 14 eyes. Okay. So these are two new concepts that I'm introducing, but you ought to know, especially because again, security and international relations is a major part of your mains paper, which means you ought to be aware of these implications, these alliances. What does it mean for, countries, as well as, what does it mean for individuals, because the surveillance that these nations do as a part of, the Five Eyes, the Nine Eyes, the 14 eyes, that is not just, for other countries, but also for eventually people, It's people who are getting, mass spied on. So what's the implication for you? We'll seek to understand that, number one, right? Number two, we'll take a look at the free movement regime, right? India, Myanmar has been in the news. And so that land border that India shares with Myanmar, that becomes of extreme importance and critical importance for us to understand. So we are going to do that. We are going to understand free movement regime, and we'll seek to understand some questions that can possibly arise out of that. Okay. And third, we'll take a look at the Norman Borlog Award. Okay. Awarded to an Indian this year. And more importantly, firstly, we'll take a look at, who Norman Borlog was. What was his contribution to food security? Not just to India and the countries in the subcontinent, but globally, And I'll tell you a very interesting story of when, a particular export shipment that was being sent by Norman Borlaug for, again, India and Pakistan was held up because of the war that broke out between India and Pakistan. Yes. So we'll take a look at that, and then we'll take a look at the questions of yesterday. Okay. So once again, I welcome each one of you. Bulbul, Aishu, Coder, Lekam, welcome. Good morning. Truth, good morning. Good morning, guys. Thank you for joining. If you are new here, good. Thank you for joining me firstly. It's your first time. We take a topical look at topics here. Okay. Topical look, then questions that come out of it. And so I hope that you consider answering the questions, more importantly, that we'll discuss after the concepts have been, expressed and discussed with you. Okay. So let's get started. Let's not waste any more time. This is where you go ahead and contact me on Instagram. This is my email ID. This is my Telegram ID where you'll find the PDF of this entire lecture uploaded later. Okay. Right. So Five Eyes Alliance. Okay. Firstly, understand the point of this alliance. What exactly is that they do? Okay. Two sorts of, intelligence gathering mechanisms. What is intelligence gathering? Gathering information. Okay. Information about people, information about countries, information about businesses. Come what may you think of it, Information is the new oil. Data is the new oil. We have always heard of that. And more so for, those people who are in the business of intelligence gathering. Okay. So two sorts of, primary sorts of information is gathered. One is called as communication intelligence, okay, which is known as comment, and second is known as electronic intelligence, which is known as ELINT, right? Now, eventually what happened just after, the World War had concluded, okay? So these Western nations were still quite unsure of, what Russia would be up to now, okay? So this insecurity led to the birth of the UK-USA agreement, okay? And thus you had the Five Eyes Alliance that came into being, with the primary motive of just sharing information. Primary information, about Russian expansion, Russian designs, Russian plans. And over the years, eventually, now that mechanism has developed to go ahead and, share information and intelligence about different countries, about different consulates, about different ambassadors, businesses, individuals, all of that. Why again? To maintain what they claim as their sovereign integrity. Okay. So let's look at it. Five Eyes, an intelligence alliance comprising Australia, Canada, New Zealand, United Kingdom, and obviously the US of A. Okay. Now, when you go ahead and compare, Five Eyes versus, just a sec. When you go ahead and compare Five Eyes versus, Nine Eyes versus 14 eyes, what you'll find is that eventually these groups of nations also have different, levels of intelligence sharing. Okay. So obviously Five Eyes is the core group. Thereafter, you have the outer group with which not all information is shared. And finally, the 14 eyes, another group of say 14 countries with which on a need to know basis you are sharing information. What is a need to know basis? Eventually, say if you go ahead and occupy a sensitive post in the government, okay, so most of the information say regarding VIPs or regarding say particular events is classified. And so your mere participation in that particular program or in that particular say event or meeting does not guarantee that you will be exposed to that information unless you have a security clearance, unless in the Indian sense, unless you have belong to a certain grade pay, right? So that information that is shared to you based on your functional requirement is known as need to know basis. The same concept that is applied in Five Eyes intelligence sharing also. Okay, Pranjal, good morning. Pooja, good morning. Welcome guys. Thank you for joining. Okay, so these countries part to the multilateral UK-USA agreement, a treaty for joint cooperation in signals intelligence. What is signals intelligence eventually? You are going to go ahead and transmit information that is being say communicated through signals, through waves. Okay, and thus you have ways and mechanisms of breaking ciphers. Obviously not information. The information is not straight away like someone picks up a phone and says, you know what, this is going to happen or this is what I want to share with you. It is encrypted, which means signal intelligence looks at breaking those encryptions, figuring out the message that is hidden behind the encryption, right? So let's look at it. The origin of the Five Eye intelligence gathering mechanism can be traced to an informal secret meeting after World War II, okay, basically to contain the Russians. This insecurity of the West gives rise to say the Five Eyes. Now, obviously it started below the US had, before the US had entered, but more importantly, now let's look at say India's SIG-INT platforms, okay. How does our signal intelligence look like? Okay. So, if you have ever been say, or I'll let you know right now, so a Republic Day program, okay, or say the function where the Prime Minister goes and pays his homage to the fallen martyrs at National War Memorial, okay. Now you have a particular announcement system that is followed there. You must have heard it on the TV, right? Or say during the Republic Day parade, there is someone who's speaking on the public announcement system. So all of these secure lines, you know, that is say set up during these high profile events, that is done by an agency of the Indian Army known as the Signals Regiment. Again, they are taking care of the communication aspect, right? That has to be on a secure line. It should be not. It shouldn't be something that someone else can get into and misuse that opportunity, right? That on Republic Day someone has hacked into the PA system and started probably going ahead with their propaganda message. That would be unacceptable, right? Which is why you find that these sorts of specialized agencies exist within the security architecture of India. Okay, so let's look at it. First one, India is known to operate a strategic signals intelligence platform which is known as Program Divya Drishti. Okay, developed by the DRDO. You also had the BEL, okay, and other stakeholders. All of them came up with the Divya Drishti, and today it is operated by the Indian Army. Similarly, you have other organizations. One obviously is the Samyukta Electronic Warfare System. Can you understand this now? Electronic warfare is what? That you go ahead and have the ability to break the cipher, break the encryption of the enemy, as well as protect your communications against being say hacked into, against being broken into, right? So that is electronic warfare, a very pertinent part of any conflict nowadays, okay? Because you must realize that in a conflict, every aspect has to be taken care of. So today, or in the past, we have looked at say how our military should be integrated with the economy. Yes, that the economy should be able to go ahead and put its might behind the army, the navy and the air force in terms of supplies of men, material, ammunition, reinforcements, all of that, right? But the other aspect is to go ahead and make sure that your communications are secure, that you are also going to go ahead and intercept messages that the enemy is say transmitting between themselves. That gives you an upper hand in the war zone, right? So Samyukta Electronic Warfare System is a part of India's efforts in that direction, okay? So you look at Himashakti, a signals intelligence platform for operations in mountainous terrain, and Himraj, which is operating in the wide frequency range covering both the communication and radar bands, okay? They're operated by the Indian Air Force, by the way. Okay. So you have these sorts of mechanisms that have been developed to take care of that particular aspect. Be Live, good morning. Good morning. Jerin, good morning. Thank you for joining, guys. Thank you so much. Okay. Right. Let's look at 5 eyes versus 9 eyes versus 14 eyes. One common theme, guys, that you must straight away observe here now. Yeah. If you're a little observant here, you will find that, well, not even one country from the global south. Okay. Most of these nations, again, the primary objective of these organizations, the primary insecurity stems from Russia. Right? And eventually, now that has been extrapolated into, say, developing world, the global south. Yes? That all of their actions, you will find, is invariably designed at containing the expanse and influence of Russia, of global south, of India, of China. Okay? And thus you find, look at this, the varying levels of engagement that I told you, not everyone is going to access all information. Okay? So these are the most closest of them all, the original 5 eyes. Thereafter, you have 4 more that are at the periphery, okay, that are given some information. And thereafter, these are at the absolute outer, who are given information on a need-to-know basis. Okay, unless you are a part of the project or the mission, only then you have some access to that particular information, otherwise none of it. Right? So again, the learning for you here, that they have differing levels of intelligence sharing. Okay. So it's a house divided straight away. Now, what do these collect? So what are the exact things that these guys collect? Okay. What intelligence are they intercepting? So let's look at it. Number 1, communications data. You had this particular example where Indian diplomatic communications were apparently, allegedly intercepted by the 5 eyes and shared with the Canadian government. Well, it's unclear what the intelligence is, but that has clearly not stopped the Canadian government from making unfounded allegations. Regardless of that, one thing that you will go ahead and appreciate is that intercepting, say, diplomatic cables, diplomatic communications, is it not a violation of the Vienna Convention then? Right? We have discussed Vienna Convention just a few days ago, and where we discussed that having secure lines of communication, right, secure comm lines is a guaranteed responsibility of the host state, right? That you cannot go ahead and touch diplomatic cables, diplomatic couriers, diplomatic bags. Which is why you found that during the G20, that the 2 large bags that the Chinese were supposedly carrying, the newspapers had that story. Well, that was not checked with. That was not put through a scanning machine. Because why? It was covered under the Vienna Convention. So how is it, first and foremost, you must ask yourself that, well, the 5 eyes were able to do this without fear of any repercussions. Okay? Obviously, India's communications is protected under Vienna Convention. Now, where does an appeal to that lie? Okay, where does an appeal to that lie? So, an appeal to that lies in the International Court of Justice. Okay, that if you are, say, dissatisfied that your rights as a visiting country has not been, say, protected, guaranteed by the host country, then you have a fair case of going and approaching the ICJ. Okay. So let's look at it. Communications data, internet activity, location data, financial data, biometric information. These are the individual data that 5 eyes as a body can go ahead and collect. Now you're looking at all of them. Okay. So how do you go ahead and protect yourself? We'll also seek to understand that. But understand the consequences of such data collection. Firstly, mass surveillance. Okay. No consent. Eventually, if your data is to be collected and used, in this case misused, the primary concept that you and I both agree with is that of consent. However, what you find is that in this case, consent is not taken. In fact, it's deemed to have been taken. Okay. So mass surveillance, you're also undermining encryption. You're breaking these codes behind which lies the real message. Okay. So obviously, you're again going ahead and infringing on the privacy of an individual. Privacy related concerns are number 1 when it comes to this intelligence gathering mechanism. Okay. Data sharing and compromising anonymity, which is a right. Just recently I had seen a tweet, okay, where an employee of a particular food ordering app, okay, is claiming that he went ahead and checked the ordering history of his partner and then figured out that, well, okay, his partner was ordering food somewhere else and this and that. But the primary problem with that is that how does a company not secure its data against, within its own system? How is it that data of 1 million, 10 million, 20 million plus people who order food probably is accessible to a low-level employee? That gives you a brief picture of how important or how negligent countries are or companies are when it comes to protecting data of the consumers that they claim to have served. Correct? So the same thing anyways is the primary crux of the problem here. So what can you do to protect yourself then? You as an individual. Yes, obviously the Indian government and the Indian consulate will take steps that they have to take to go ahead and say further protect their data. But what about you as an individual? What should you do? So number one, switch to an anonymous email service provider. Okay. Eventually you will realize that the ISP that you have, yes, that your internet service provider that you have, is that complicit in this arrangement, or is it protecting your interests as a consumer? It has a choice to make. It can go ahead and definitely protect its consumers better, but would it do it? Again, is a question that the ISPs can only answer. Okay. Using an end-to-end encrypting messaging device, popular messaging services claim to have end-to-end encryption. Again, how far is that true? How far is that being enforced? We'll see. Choosing a privacy-friendly browser. So you have, say, browsers like Tor, which allow you to go ahead and protect your identity. Okay, that you can go ahead and use to go ahead and access other realms of the internet. Okay, and finally, using a reliable virtual private network provider, VPN. Okay, so all of these encryption facilities are available for free online that you cannot be traced when you are going ahead and using your internet. Given that you are in an age of mass surveillance, is that going to become a reality, say, in the coming days? How does an individual protect their privacy? Eventually, the onus of protecting your data lies partly with you and also, say, the other stakeholders, the internet service provider, the government, and obviously the super governments that exist. But eventually, what are the steps that you should be looking at taking? So these are the primary ones. Right. So that was 5 eyes, 9 eyes, 14 eyes. Okay. More importantly, from the mains perspective, you will seek to understand how these kind of, say, intelligence gathering mechanisms hurt you as an individual. Okay. Let's look at this question now that I have for you. Identify the correct statements. Statement A. No country of the Global South is a member of the 5 Eyes, 9 Eyes or 14 Eyes alliance. Statement B. Diplomatic communications are treated as inviolable under the Vienna Convention. And statement C. An appeal on the violation of Vienna Convention lies with the International Criminal Court. You will identify the correct statements for me. What I suggest is, once again, for those of you who are new here, answer the questions that I have for you. It's whatever number that I have. I'm not sure how many questions I have for you today, probably 8 or 9. Okay. Answer all of them in a linear format in the comment box. Okay. And the correct answers, or at least the sincere attempts, get featured in my class tomorrow morning. Okay. More importantly, you will understand the art of question solving. Eventually, your selection depends partly on your knowledge and partly on your ability to solve questions, which is why a student is best advised to go ahead and solve as many questions. Get over your fear of solving questions. Okay. Question 2. Identify the correct statements. The National Institute of Cryptology Research and Development, NICRD, is it located in Hyderabad? Okay. NICRD, does it come under the purview of NTRO, the National Technical Research Organization? Okay, it's India's premier technical agency when it comes to, say, all of these intelligence gathering mechanisms of the digital kind. Okay. And NTRO, is it an independent body under the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, MIT? You will identify once again the correct statements for me. Now what I suggest is, after you have gone through these slides, the PPT, the lecture, spend a couple of minutes, fill in the knowledge gaps with the most basic of research, and you will find that you will have ample fodder material for any mains question as well as, say, the knowledge gap that is required for prelims. So this is what I suggest. Go ahead and research for not more than 2-3 minutes on this question. Okay, maximum. Don't get stuck in the loop of Wikipedia. It's a never-ending loop, right? Meanwhile, one of the last times I am going ahead and informing my dear crowd, my dear students here, unless you are sure of how to go about, say, writing an answer of mains, what are the key components of writing a good mains answer? Yes, that there is a method to the madness, that you need to be aware that a good mains answer is a lot about the approach that you show in answering your questions. whether you have the ability to capture all of the parts that make up your answer. I've tried to explain some of that, given my limited experience. Whatever I have learned, I have tried to go ahead and explain it, communicate it in a manner which is easiest for a student to digest. And herein I have discussed the GS1 geography paper of this year's means. Okay. My colleague Abhishek sir has done the same for art and culture, history. So I suggest go ahead and take a look at these particular lectures that you will find under the live section on StudyIQ English. More so than the same model answers that you'll come across on different portals, what I suggest is take a moment to go ahead and look at the approach to answers. If you develop that, you can go ahead and answer any question after that. The knowledge is there. You need to know the way, the ability, the development of the ability needs to follow, and that can only follow once you know what to develop, how to develop. Many times students will ask me कि कैसे लिखना है mains answer. I've tried to go ahead and explain it in a manner that you can understand. So go ahead and engage with these, and I hope that you benefit out of this. Right, second topic of the day, the free movement regime. Now, if you consider the India-Myanmar border, okay, that it shares boundary with these states is well known. Okay, a question can directly arise out of this, by the way. Yes, expect a question on this directly. So, which states of the Northeast share a direct IB, international boundary, with Myanmar? But more importantly, when you look at the historical aspect of this boundary, you find that, say, as part of India's Look East policy, a decision was taken most recently. And the decision was that in the border of, say, India and Myanmar, you will be allowed visa-free entry, complete no-barred movement for 16 kilometers on either side. Why was that done? Because what you find is that the terrain here is quite uneven. So a boundary firstly is quite hard to demarcate. Regardless of that, this is quite possible that, say, if this is your boundary, yes, Indian side, Myanmar side, that your house might be here, okay, but your extended family might be here, or your daily market might be here. Conversely, the same might also apply. You see? So this was again formulated and thought over by the government of India, right? You had this implemented very recently, not too long ago in fact, okay, in 2018. Now the problem arises after the sequence of events that have followed since 2018. After 2018, we have seen that the Myanmar junta that has gone ahead and say there is a large scale migration of refugees happening. They're escaping persecution in Myanmar. The Myanmar's military junta has taken some extreme steps. At the same time, you also had, say, the COVID-19 pandemic. So what eventually happened was that this boundary was partially closed, in fact completely closed during the pandemic, and thereafter what you find is that because of the persecution that is happening in Myanmar, people from that side are coming in large hordes towards India, seeking refuge. Yes, taking advantage of the free movement regime. Now, the problem so arises how? Because of the large-scale migration, one of the primary, say, consequences one can expect is that at the local level, there will be some dissatisfaction. Obviously, more competition for resources, for jobs, for just general quality of life. Also the dissatisfaction that, say, probably they are not Indians, right? All of this is a very ripe recipe for a civil strife, and which is why you find that, say, the events that have recently happened in the Northeast can also be linked to the, say, ease of movement that is available between India and Myanmar, right? Now, this was stated by the Chief Minister of the particular state, who has gone ahead and, say, exhorted Government of India to go ahead and close this particular boundary now, the free movement regime between India and Myanmar. Okay, let's understand this now. So, border between India and Myanmar demarcated by the British in 1826, once again, as we have always known so far, without seeking the opinion of the people, right? So, you had the people who were split into two halves. Yes, your house is that side, fields this side, quite normal, quite natural to expect. So now, what was the point of FMR, the free movement regime? Essentially to give impetus to local trade and business. That your local hut, this local bazaar, you find was the primary mode of, say, transaction and trade that was happening. Now with the free movement regime, obviously, you had people who could carry their goods on the other side, try to sell it. You had people from that side bring their products, try sell it here. Yes, so economic integration, meeting of the hearts and minds was the point here. Okay. Now, why has it been criticized? For unintentionally aiding illegal immigration, drug trafficking, in fact, the narco route. It has also been discussed as a narco route and eventually gun smuggling also. Okay? Now, the Indian-Myanmar border is entirely unfenced. So, if you look at fencing of borders that India has done, obviously Pakistan is a primary contender there. Okay? So, fencing has been done vis-a-vis Bangladesh border also. Okay? So, your homework is go ahead, take a look and let me know which of the international borders of India have been fenced or are partly fenced or wholly fenced. We'll seek to understand that too. I have a question related to that here too. Okay. So, in Manipur, less than 6 kilometers of the border has been fenced. The border runs through forested and is difficult to monitor. Yes. So, anyways, not fenced plus open border, uneven terrain, topography varied, which means you cannot go ahead and enforce all of that, all of the security architecture that you have. Thus follows the coup. Persecution happens, people come in this side, and now people are saying that FMR needs better regulation. No one anticipated this large-scale influx of people from the Myanmar side, okay? Which is why you find that, say, the local level dissatisfaction in the Indian side is primarily to do with the ease of movement that exists along the free movement regulation zone, okay? So, the removal is undesirable now. This is being spoken about. Now, your job after you have gone through this discussion is to form an opinion. I have given you the analysis that, okay, what is FMR? What are the consequences? Now, form an opinion as to whether you are for FMR or against FMR. And both sides could be justified with, say, relevant examples. Okay. From the examination perspective, form an opinion now. And whenever you are going ahead and looking at articles, try to corroborate your opinion based on the evidences that are provided in the article. Depending on which side you choose, you could be for FMR or against FMR, doesn't matter. But from the point of view of your examination, that will help you gather evidences depending on the side that you have chosen. Okay. Eventually, what I suggest is maintain notes in terms of for and against and go on writing evidences as and when you find them in the newspapers and in the daily news analysis here. Okay. Right, go ahead. Which of the above international borders are fully or partly fenced? Number 1, India-Pakistan border. Number 2, India-Bangladesh border. 3, India-Nepal border. And number 4, the fourth option, India-Bhutan border. Obviously, India-Myanmar, I have just told you, almost totally unfenced, no problems there. What about the rest? You let me know here. Which of the above is or are correct? India is not a party to the 1951 Refugee Convention and its protocol, true or false? And Article 21 of the Constitution encompasses the right of non-refoulement. Okay, non-refoulement is that you cannot be sent back. Say if you are persecuted and if you are seeking refuge, you cannot be sent back. Ram Ramji, Gunfun, how are you? Thanks for joining. Thank you. Thank you so much. बहुत अच्छा लगा. आप आओ. Right, question 5. Which of the following states of India shares an international border with Myanmar? Basic question. And it is just going to decide. Go ahead and test your mapping skills. Are you aware of how our Northeast is? Yes. Many students, even good students, aware students also can get confused there. So go ahead firstly, answer this question. And in case you get this incorrect, your job is to go ahead and take a deep look at the Atlas of India. Thinking of, by the way, speaking of atlases, yes, we'll discuss that at the end of the class. Correct. Okay. So that's your second topic. Meanwhile, if you understand the way I communicate, yes, the approach that we take to solving questions and understanding topics here, that remains my primary motivation in the Prelims to Interview initiative also. Yes, that there needs to be a conceptual approach to this examination. Road-based learning can only get you that far. Okay, you might get, say, up to mains. After that, you will be found out. Why? Because you look at the questions and more often than not, the questions ask you to analyze and opine. This year, I also saw what's your opinion questions. So, which means you need to develop that ability now. Firstly, facts, then analysis, then you develop your opinion. You will not take anyone else's opinion. Okay. So, this is the primary thrust, this Prelims to Interview initiative, where we handhold you right from the prelim stage up until your interviews. Okay. Expert faculty, continuous classes, in fact. Okay. And more important, a question-based solving approach. So, go ahead, engage with this course. You'll find the sign-up link in the description box. And meanwhile, even if you are, say, not signing up for this, it's okay, no problems. What I suggest is, even if you are, say, doing it alone, doing it yourself, Now is a good time to start. October first week, the best time to start, and in fact the last stage. After this, you are running a race against time. If you start right now in October, you have given yourself a fair chance of success next year. Okay. So regardless of whether you are studying yourself or if you seek some sort of guidance, go ahead, and this is an option that you should consider. Okay. So use the code BALIVE. Why? Well, firstly, you and I get started with your preparation together. Okay. And this conceptual approach is taken to firstly geography. This is the subject I will start with you. And thereafter, more importantly, you also get a huge discount. Eventually civil service preparation should not be cost intensive. Any subjects, any examination preparation should not be so costly that people have to go ahead and mortgage their land. It makes no sense. Yes, absolutely unavoidable problem. So go ahead, sign up with this, use the code BALIVE, and well, you get a massive discount, around 50,000, 40,000 rupees. Okay, Norman E. Borlog Award. Now this Mr. Norman E. Borlog, well known in India, okay, because considered to be the pioneer of Green Revolution, right? So now first let's understand the award. What is the award all about? It honors exceptional scientists, okay, the young scientists, okay. You can't be exceptionally old to get this award, okay. So there are two main awards that you need to know in terms of, say, related to food, okay. One is the Norman E. Borlaug Award, and the second is the World Food Prize, okay, which is considered to be the equivalent of the Nobel Prize, okay. But this is to do with, say, contributions in food security, in agricultural development. So you think of names like M.S. Swaminathan, Verghese Kurian. They have been previous recipients of the World Food Prize, right? And the Norman E. Borlaug Award is for scientists under the age of 40. First difference there, okay? Those who have worked for the global challenges of food security and eradication of hunger. Now, named after the chief architect of the Green Revolution, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, his contributions, when you look at it, countries of, say, Mexico, okay, the Indian subcontinent, Africa, okay, will remain, say, forever indebted to him for the work that he did, okay. That the population needed to be fed, and needed to be fed from, say, sustainably produced grains, that you cannot go ahead and import grains at a high rate to feed a burgeoning population. So he came up with his genetically, say, altered variety, okay, high yielding varieties, and he also had a hypothesis, and a very interesting hypothesis that you should be aware of, which is also called as the Borlaug's hypothesis, okay. And what does he say essentially? The Borlaug's hypothesis, it essentially says that if you have a tract of land, okay, and you go ahead and increase the productivity of this land, right, using, say, methods, then eventually you are going to go ahead and reduce deforestation. Now, how is the correlation made by Dr. Norman Borlaug? How did he go ahead and, say, correlate that, say, productivity increase of a particular tract of land is leaded to deforestation, will lead to decrease in deforestation? So what he says is that if your productivity is marginal or low, in that case, more of forest land will be cut to compensate for the grains that would have been so produced on one particular tract of land. Eventually, you have to feed your people. 200 million people exist there waiting for food. Now, if you cannot increase the productivity of the land, you will obviously get more agricultural fields with the low productivity, right? So this is known as Borlaug's hypothesis, a very important concept, okay? Especially why? Because in the era of climate change, what you find is that the Borlaug's hypothesis does stand the test of reasoning. But at the same time, you have to realize that these, say, high yield varieties or the modified seeds that we are looking at, what are the other climate based ramifications that they have? Do they lead to the loss of, say, the nutrient ability of the soil? Okay. What are the other side effects, if you can understand it as that these sorts of seeds have, right? So the Borlaug's hypothesis also is a double-edged sword. It has two parts to it. But here is the hypothesis in first for you, okay? So now the recipients of this Borlaug Award, now you have individuals who have worked on the ground, right? On the ground people, no armchair gyan giving. So food production, processing and nutrition, any part of the process that you are a part of and you have gone ahead and made a substantial contribution by working on the field, changing the lives of the people with your interventions, then you probably might stand a chance to at least get nominated for the award. Okay. So it is presented annually by the World Food Prize Foundation. This was set up, by the way, by Norman E. Borlog in the state of Iowa in the United States. Okay, that is where he belonged from, I think. Right. So the Norman Borlog Award 2023 given to Swati Nayak, known as Bihana Didi, Odisha ki hai ye, awarded the prestigious Norman E. Borlog Award. What has she done? Well, firstly, understand this. Shah Bhagi Dhan rice variety. Yes, it's a drought-tolerant variety of rice introduced in Odisha. And what you also find is that she has gone ahead and included women self-help groups as the primary stakeholders in this process. Yes, which is why you find that two parts of, say, the whole society have been taken care of, not just food security, but also empowering women at the grassroots through the formation of institutions, through self-help group mechanisms, right? So you see, it's a very ripe question once again for a mains ka question. Two concepts converging together. You should be absolutely on the aware here right now, okay? So she became the third Indian agricultural scientist to receive the Norman E. Borlaug Award. Pehle Aditi Mukherjee and Mahalingam Govindaraj had got it. Okay. Now the World Food Prize, like I told you, another award, right? That has so far been given to MS Swaminathan. Primarily, okay, you are looking at Verghese Kurian plus the rest. From the Indian side, there are 2 or 3 more. Eventually, 5 individuals, I think, have got the World Food Prize who are from Indian nationality, right? Okay, bataiye jawab iska. Which of the following are correct? MS Swaminathan, Verghese Kurian, recipients of the World Food Prize. Borlaug hypothesis draws a direct relationship between agricultural productivity and reducing deforestation. This is question number 6 for you. Right, my friends? Any problems that you have regarding to the concepts that we discussed today, you are going to go ahead and connect with me on my Instagram channel. Okay. You'll find that up until now, I've just posted once. And so it is primarily because my message box is full of doubts. So that's what I do. I solve your doubts. The posting can be done later as we get nearer to the prelims bit. Okay. The questions from yesterday, we'll take a look at them now first. Pehle, which is the correct sequence? Now, this is a question that is done to death and asked to death by mock examinations, PYQs. Kahan bhi dekho, ye sawal mil jayega aapko. Okay. So, I'm not going to go ahead and dwell much on it. Most of you have answered it correctly. Vishnu Prayag, followed by Nand, then Karna, Rudra and Dev. Correct. Here is the diagram that is for you. You will understand and look at the tributaries that are going ahead and meeting whom is whom where. Simple hai, isme kuch explanation to hai nahi. Which of the following cities does not lie on the banks of river Ganga? Gomti Nagar is in Lucknow, which means obviously Gomti is on the banks of Lucknow. Mirzapur, Bhagalpur, Patna, all correct. Lucknow, incorrect. Okay. In which state will you find check dams, locally known as Johad? Okay. Johad is to do with Rajasthan, right? Straight up NCRT. Which of the following countries are elephants not found in the wild? Okay, they are extinct in the wild in Pakistan. Okay, Bhutan has an active border, an elephant corridor with the Buxa Tiger Reserve and the other reserves and national parks in that area in northern Bengal. Okay, Nepal has Chitwan National Park, full of elephants, and Sri Lanka obviously has one of the highest density of elephants in those countries that have elephants. So bees, obviously, Pakistan has none. Elephant reserves in India include areas of human use and habitation. Absolutely correct. We discussed that, which is why you're looking at, say, fragmentation of habitat and deforestation that is leading to the loss of elephant reserves. Okay, fragmentation of habitat and destruction of corridor, elephant corridor, which is getting affected. Why? Because again, elephant reserves do have areas of human habitation. Okay, black ivory coffee we discussed, made of elephant consumed coffee beans that it passes through its digestive system and into its feces. Okay, you pick out the coffee beans because they have undergone immense fermentation. So the hard taste of the coffee is lost. It is now sweet in taste. sells for a huge amount of money, is considered a delicacy in, well, the rich households. Okay. Dung beetles interact with elephant dung and, well, they positively affect the ecosystem. Like I told you yesterday, dung beetles roll up small bits of the elephant dung, thereafter bury it in the soil at different locations. Somehow they forget about them. Eventually what happens is that this buried dung in the area around goes and acts as a manure and leads to, say, increased ecosystem services. Okay. Which state in India has elephant as their state animal? Well, all of them. Okay. All of them have elephant as their state animal. Why? Because again, you find that the concentration of elephants is highest within these particular states. A PYQ from 2020. With reference to Indian elephants, consider the following statements. Leader of an elephant group is female. Like I told you, they follow the matriarchal system. Okay. And if you are an erring male, if you are a male who shows a little bit of aggression in an elephant herd, you get summarily thrown out and you get known as a makhna. Okay. So the first statement is correct. Maximum gestation period, 22 months. It has among the highest gestation period amongst all living mammals. Elephant can go normally on calving till the age of 40 years only. Here is the thing first. Yes. That there is no hard and fast, say, age. Yes. You look at 45 as the average age. But some elephants can go ahead and calve up till 50, right? So this is the word that you should be aware of. This absolute word that UPSC includes is your first hint to solving a question. Okay. Among the states in India, the highest elephant population is not in Kerala, unfortunately. It is in the state of Karnataka. Okay. So your answer here being 1 and 2. Correct. Okay. In Köppen's climate classification, what would be Agumbe's climate classified as? Agumbe in Karnataka, ARC, Agumbe rainforest complex. Okay. You find that it's near on the Western Ghats, which means it's going to be A. Western Ghats receives monsoonal rainfall, which means M. So this is my climate classification. It would be AM. Right. Okay. Meanwhile, I must thank Ajay for his message. Okay. Yesterday's class, I had made a small error was there. So we must correct it. And I have only Ajay to thank for that. Okay. That in the class I had erroneously said that the Climate Hazard and Vulnerability Atlas is published by the MOEFCC. Unfortunately, no. It is published by the IMD, as Ajay rightly pointed out. More importantly, if you go ahead and look at the website, and this is something you should consider doing today, the NATPO. Okay. It's a government website. And you will find that it releases many atlas of the government of India. Okay. So what I suggest is we will be doing a class on this very soon. See the major atlases that are released by the government of India. Meanwhile, one thing that you can consider doing is going ahead and taking a look at the NATPO website as well as the IMD website, which gives me the whole advantage of understanding what the climate hazard and vulnerability atlas is. Okay. So once again, Ajay, thank you. Thank you so much for pointing it out. You know, it's students like you who make me a better teacher. Thank you so much. Right. Okay. So these are the fine individuals who have answered the questions correctly. Okay. Pranjul, Kalyan, Truth, Monica, Shubham, Harshit, Ulfat, Pooja, Be-Life Facts, Akansha, Lekam, Ajay, once again, thank you. Neeraja, Akhil, Mandeep, Coder, Parcham, Vidhi, Vaishnavi, Jerin, Crystal, Karuna, Your Neighbor, Anjali, Ayush, Aditya, Akshay, Rahul, Frown and Debashish. Now, meanwhile, I would be very wrong if I didn't go ahead and actually express my immense gratitude to Lekam. You know, he had left a message for me in my yesterday's comment box. Firstly, I am immensely grateful for your appreciation, Lekam. I hope together that we learn a lot and that translates into you joining the civil services. Yes. And once again, you know, it was an overwhelming message. So thanks, Lekam. You made my day, by the way. Right. To the rest of you guys, those who are watching me, please engage with the questions. You know, the questions that I have designed for you are designed to test your understanding. You know, it will fill that knowledge gap that exists for as far as these concepts are concerned. Okay. Meanwhile, there was another question that we had put forward yesterday. The relationship between dung beetle and elephant. Okay. Dung beetle and elephant. You know, this action by the dung beetle insofar as taking the elephant dung and then rolling it into small balls and then just putting it across the whole jungle, you know, or that particular area. So is it say commensalism or mutualism, or what exactly? What is the relationship here? So many of you went ahead and answered me differently. One thing that I can confirm for you is that it does not satisfy the criteria of meeting for mutualism. Because eventually, even though one might argue saying that, you know what, because the ecosystem services of that particular place are getting affected, increased, bettered, the elephant will eventually benefit out of it. But when you are drawing a relationship such as these, you look at drawing a direct relationship. Okay? An indirect relationship often is not the method followed when looking at these particular relationships of, say, whether it is mutualism or commensalism or whatever. Symbiotic relationship kis tarah ka hai, jis tarah ka bhi hai. Okay? So mutualism it is not. To the rest of the options that you guys have given, they are correct. The commensalism bit I think is nearest to what I would expect is the relationship that a dung beetle and an elephant share. Okay? So thank you guys for your answers. Meanwhile, if you have any doubts, you will reach out to me, and you will also find the entire PDF uploaded on my Telegram channel around noon. Okay? Bulbul, aaj WhatsApp community ban jayega, I can assure you. Aaj sham tak it will be done. Tomorrow you will be introduced to my brand new off the tawa, fresh WhatsApp community. Okay? Bulbul, do consider joining. Right? Thank you guys. Have a productive day. Answer the questions for me. And if possible, share this class with those of your friends who you think will find this whole endeavor useful. Eventually, we want to go ahead and engage a lot more people with this process, because the word needs to be out with the students, that rote learning is not going to get you anywhere. You need to start developing, analyzing, and forming an opinion, more importantly. Right? Till I see you tomorrow morning, 6:30 a.m. with another set of topics, another set of questions. This is Bhuvan signing off. Have a wonderful day. Have a productive day. Bye.